we talk energy systems at the beginning. Energy systems probably won't be a standalone question. It may be tied in to a two-part question to something else, because energy systems in this class are pretty straightforward. Work to rest ratios is what you need to explain. Do you understand work to rest ratios and how to set them up? Your sport has a certain flow to it. You know certain sports have certain work to rest ratios that are inherent in the sport. If you're doing conditioning, you want to link up your conditioning work to rest ratio very similar to what the sport does. In the weight room though, we may not do our work to rest ratios the same. Let's say if you're a baseball bat and you're a batter predominantly, that's your training, that's what you're trying, that's what you're getting paid for, is to hit a ball. You only have to work 1 second or less. Here to here, swing, that's it. That's your life. Your life is based around less than 1 second of work, high power output, high strength, high explosion. That's how you get paid. So how do you train in the weight room?
Right around it.
That's one concept. Yeah, you could say I'm just going to do 1 rep. That's my life. I'm just training 1 repetition on everything. The challenge is we know that you're not going to develop as much force, power, strength if you only do 1 rep maxes every day of your life. So you need to have some cycling to it where 3 reps, 5 reps, 10 reps. To add size, you need a little bit of extra fatigue to recruit these different muscle fibers. So that's why you'll see some people doing sets of 10, 12, 15 even sometimes to get at that. The question is that the best use of their time? Would it be better to do 10 3-rep maxes, for example, or 2 sets of 15? Same total number of repetitions. We get to 30 reps on an exercise, so we could have 10 times 3, or we could have 2 times 15. Make sense? We got the same total number of reps. Let's say we go max on everything. So we go 15 rep max, can't do 1 rep more on that, and we are going 3 rep maxes on everything. What would you recommend for a baseball batter? Someone that has to hit a baseball 1 time.
3 reps.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes theoretical sense. You can justify that easily. How many baseball players actually train like that?
Right.
So the question is, why not?
Uneducated.
That's the way they did it back then.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of that. Oh, that's not, we've never done it that way, so it can't be right. That's the lamest excuse ever. But you got to ask yourself unintended consequences. Potentially, joint stress is one concern that I would have doing this excessively, because you're going heavier. Let's say your 3 rep max is, I don't know, let's pick a number, 200. And your 15 rep max is probably 40. Something like that. Let's somewhere in that range is what you'll see. So 200 on your joint, you're doing 30 times 200 on your joint, whereas here you're doing 140 on your joint, and that's theoretically safer. You're doing less weight on the joint itself. So that's the only real question you got to ask yourself. I get that this is going to give us probably better results for the sport. Is there a risk inherent in doing it super heavy all the time? And that's the only real argument you could have against that, would be unintended consequences due to load. Then the question becomes, is what type of exercise are we talking about? Legs versus arms. Is it a variable resistance movement versus a isotonic movement, from a standpoint of the same resistance the entire motion, or as we're getting more compromised at the joint level, are we unloading a little bit? So that's where your knowledge needs to come in and decide. Because you want to create programs that are going to give you the best bang for the buck for your athletes, not just copy a program that they've always done.
In this instance, wouldn't want to, as a personal trainer, you wouldn't want to put 10 sets on anybody of one exercise, would you? Unless it's sport based.
Why not?
Talking about lift wise.
Yeah.
Because at least from what I've seen, most trainers like to stay around the 4 set range, or maybe 5 if you're doing a little power too.
So ask yourself why.
Just one of the factors is what you said. It puts a lot of stress on the joints.
Okay. Question though is, if our total reps are the same.
But the work output, if I do 4 sets of 3 reps at 200, my work output would be more than 2 sets of 15 with 140. And
Correct.
I'm talking about 4 sets of 3.
Yeah.
100%
right.
It'll still be way more.
Yeah.
Because your total output, that since you're at a higher intensity, I'm guessing that 200 would be at like 70 to 80%.
It's going to be closer to 92%.
Oh, 90? Okay.
Yeah. So 3 rep max is typically about 92 to 95% of your 100.
Well, that's even more than what I was thinking. So you're definitely stressing the muscle way more than it's meant to be handled, and adding 10 sets on.
I clarified. The muscle can probably handle it. The joint is the concern.
Okay.
Yeah. Because the muscle itself should be fine for something like this. It's more the joint stress which is the concern for most of the movements.
Yeah. So I was thinking is that you work that down to 4, you put it in a safe range of him not being super cautious about injuring himself, and super fatigued.
Your argument's good. That's why you don't see this very often. The question is, why 4? Why not 6? Why not 3?
I know most people like I don't know the textbook definition, but I know
there is
most
no textbook definition. This is discussion.
Most people like to stay around the 3, but since the trainers always like to one up everything and try to, that 4th rep, I think it adds. I think Dr. Langer said about it only adds about 2 to 5% extra.
Yeah. So
work output.
2 sets is significantly better than 1. 3 sets is a little less better than 2, so it's better, but the percentages, I don't have it off the top of my head, but 2 sets is the minimum you should ever do to get the real outcome.
I think he said 2 sets was like 70-something% output, and 3 was 90 or something like that, and that 3rd is 92 or something.
Yeah, anything more than 3 hasn't been shown to be that much more beneficial, but that's in traditional rep ranges of 8 to 12.
Okay.
So you've got to keep that in mind that we're talking about in a traditional 8 to 12 hypertrophy type workout, not so much in something like this. But let's just do this for example. So that's 30. So we have 3 times 2, we have 6,000. Make sense? See where I got that from? Okay, here we have 30 times 140. What is that? Someone give me that.
1,200? No.
It's 4,200, yeah? Is that right? Okay, so we have a pretty significant total resistance difference there. Same number of reps, very, very different because our resistance is significantly different. And that's what we want to look at. We want to look at total poundage or total weight lifted. So if we wanted to equate that, what would we do? How much would we take this down to max that? Because most people, when they see this, they're like, yeah, that's fine. That's not that very much. If we wanted to equate that, we'd have to drop this down to how much?
Seven.
Yeah, right around 7. It's not exact, but 7, pretty much. So now we're pretty much talking about apples to apples from a standpoint of total resistance.
But that still doesn't equate to like muscle power output, does it?
When you say, what do you mean by muscle power output? That's total resistance. Power is measured in watts, which we're not actually measuring here. So we're looking at total resistance on the muscle and the joint.
Right.
So this is a fair comparison, because what we would have now would be, what's that, 21, it's right at 42, yeah. So we're pretty much even, Stephen here, on everything, from a resistance standpoint. Yeah.
What I was saying was, so let's say you do 2 reps at 50%,
Mhm.
1 rep at 100% max
Yeah.
out. You're doing. I thought that your muscles were actually doing more work with that 100%, that 100% than they were with the 250s. If you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I do. There is more strain, but the total resistance lifted is the same. If you think about it, it's harder because it's 1 rep and you're doing it all at once versus breaking it over 2. So the recruitment in absolute strength is going to be better for the 1 rep at the max versus the 2 at 50%. But the density of the exercise, meaning that number, is going to be exactly the same.
Isn't that what you're chasing for when you lift though? Muscle recruitment?
It depends. Ask yourself why. What are you trying to accomplish? Are you trying to just get as strong as possible? Are you trying to recruit the most fibers as possible? Are you trying to get the most power produced? Or are you trying to get more endurance? So you got to ask yourself that question every time, because everything you're saying is 100% right, but you've got to know when to implement it. So if we were to compare this for a baseball batter, does that seem to make more sense now? That seems fairer, still safer on the body as well.
I wouldn't say.
You'd do this one?
No, I would just reduce it a little bit more. For some reason, seven sets is
So in your mind, you're like, I've only seen 4, so anything above 4, I can't.
I mean, I can do above 4. It's
Yeah.
just that at 3 reps, like you said, 92% output every time. Like, I don't know if I feel safe with putting somebody under 7 sets in a workout plan you're doing this incrementally, like all the time.
Yeah, I mean, it may not be all the time, but in general, there's plenty of people. If you go into any Olympic weightlifting environment, they're doing sets of 10, 12 all the time because they're doing 1 or 2 reps. A lot of rest in between, but they're trying to optimize their output. So don't get caught up in 3 sets or 4 sets. Ask yourself, what's the sport and what are we trying to accomplish? I'd much rather in sports that are very short duration do things kind of in this environment, because that's exactly mimicking their sport environment to a greater extent. There is going to be times when you want higher reps from a hypertrophy standpoint if that's the objective, but a lot of the time we want to make sure that we get forces as high as possible and power outputs as high as possible in the sports environment. Don't forget, a lot of the things that we see in gyms are aesthetic based. They're calorie burn. We just want to burn as many calories as possible. So, that environment is very different than optimizing athletic performance. So be careful about linking what you see or what people do from a calorie burn. Because this, from a calorie burn standpoint, isn't going to burn that many calories in the workout itself. You're going to rest a lot. Your work time, let's say that's 10 seconds. Each set is 10 seconds. So that's 70 seconds of work. Each set here is probably 60 seconds because of the 15 reps. So we're actually doing here 2 minutes. Let's say 120 seconds. Whereas here, the whole thing is 70 seconds. So we're actually under load for longer at a much lighter resistance, which will burn more calories during the workout period. But this may actually produce more total calories throughout the day, because we're getting more growth hormone release when you go heavy like that. You get more testosterone release when you go heavy like that. So you have to, and then you also get the increased metabolic rate throughout the day. So over the course of an entire 24-hour period, they're probably burning about the same total number of calories. However, in the actual workout itself, you know, you're gonna get more calories burned. If you wear a heart rate monitor that estimates calories, this type of workout doing, you know, one for the legs, one for the arms, one for the shoulders, you get maybe, you know, 20 total sets done for the entire workout. This type of workout's gonna show you that you burned 600 calories for the workout. This type of workout's probably only gonna show you burn 300 or 400 calories. So that's why you see these type rep ranges are much more pronounced in, say, your Orange Theories, your CrossFits, your boot camps, your calorie burning activities that general population folks want to go to burn as many calories as possible in the shortest amount of time. Your Soul Cycles, your all that. They're all trying to just burn as many calories as they can in a 45 minute to an hour period. Most of your athletes, total calorie burn is really secondary because they train so many hours a day in their sport. Your 1 hour of workout time shouldn't be focused around how many calories can we burn in that hour. It should be, are we getting them stronger? Are we getting them more powerful? Those factors. Now, really good discussion though. These are the types of things you want to have, those type discussions, and then you want to be clear in your mind how you want to answer them, and can you justify it? What else?